Is it visible? My presentation is visible?
Yes, it is visible, sir. You can continue.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Venkatesh. I'm currently working as assistant professor in the EC department, PhD Institute of Technology and Applied Research, Coimbatore. So today's topic is about a 5G antenna. Well, the topic is all about how to what are the to identify what are the research topics that is available with respect to the 5G antenna, and we are not going to talk about solutions here at the first, and we are going to find what are the issues still there with the 5G antenna design, and we are going to formulate the problem where you can work on in the future. Okay. So my agenda is going to be we are going to a little bit of introduction, and we are going to learn about what is 5G and what are the 5G base stations that are going to provide, and multi-beam antenna technologies for 5G. Then we'll have a smaller discussion and we'll finish that off. So you can see three people in this slide. One is Maxwell, and the second man is Hertz, and third man is JC Bose. I always do with all my presentations, because these people, we can call it as the forefathers of whatever the wireless technology we enjoy this day. So Maxwell's equation, we know that it has four equations. One is two divergence equation and two curl equations. And if these Maxwell's equations are 20 odd equations are there. When Maxwell postulated this equation, it is 20 odd equation. Then by using the vector algebra, Oliver Heaviside reduced these 20 odd equations into four equations. And if there is no Maxwell equation, yes, ma'am.
Sir, 1 second. I think you are in 30th slide.
The PPT is not visible, sir.
Oh, okay. Wait, ma'am. I will check.
I try to share again, sir.
Now it's visible,
sir. Now it's visible.
Yes, visible, sir, but it is in 20th slide. I think you have to start from the beginning, or check the PPT.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Now, ma'am, are you able to see the first line?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay. Thank you. So these are the four Maxwell's equation. Two are called as the curl equation. The last two are called as the divergence equation. And on a lighter note, if there is no Maxwell equation, we'll be still working with wires. The entire wireless community is because of these four equations. Wireless, whatever we enjoy with the wireless communication here, it's because of these four equations. So the Maxwell actually formulated this equation, but by that time he doesn't had any facility to prove it, and even people didn't agree with those equations. But it was Hertz who first devised a system to prove an energy can be transferred through wireless media, and this was the entire setup what was demonstrated by Hertz. And this setup is available in the textbook Microwave Engineering by Pozzar. You can see it in the first chapter or second chapter. And this is the first experimental setup. And there is an Indian who contributed to the Microwave Society. That is, we call it as he's a Nobel laureate also, but he got the Nobel Prize for plant physiology. But he is a Bengali, and he is from Bengal, and his name is JC Bose. He first demonstrated an experiment with the wireless communication where he rang a bell in a church, and as well as he blasted a small bomb in the Kolkata. Right, it's a just experiment. Okay, he used a wavelength from 2.5 centimeter to 5 centimeter, and even JC Bose, if he have still worked with the electronic side, he might have contributed much towards the electronic side from in India, but because Sir Neville Mott, who is a Nobel laureate, he said that JC Bose was at least 60 years ahead of his time. He was able to visualize there will be semiconductors going to rule the world of electronics. But here his words are true. It was very proved that JC Bose had a very good vision towards electronics, but he turned towards idea to plant physiology, and he got a Nobel Prize there also. And now let us get into the subject, the evolution of cellular communication. So by early 1980s, first wireless telephony was designed with the help of the first technology. It is 1G, where we'll have only, in a layman we had only calls that can be made with the help of only voice communication is possible with first generation of mobile phone, and second generation supported both voice communication as well as data, where we came to have about SMSs and all. That is the evolution of second generation, and there is an intermediate 2.5G where we used GPRS and eGPRS for connecting it to the internet. And third generation is the combination of both internet and the voice. And the major difference between the 2.5G and 3G is we had a higher data rate, and that is the basic foundation for the mobile broadband. We are in this generation, we have enjoyed 2G for 3G and 4G. Tomorrow we are going to use 5G also. So 3G we have found a much better internet connectivity, and 4G is a enhanced mobile broadband. What we are enjoying today, we can able to download or upload data for a few hundreds of Mbps, megabits per second. And tomorrow is going to be all about 5G. So now we are getting phones with 5G enabled in the market, but it is not fully 5G enabled, but it supports MIMO, and it operates at the sub 6 GHz band, and it is the first baby step towards implementing the 5G. And so this mobile communication, what I've told, it is first 3G is used for streaming music and video. It is going to, we are going to use it for surfing the web, and we are engaged in the social media via the smartphones. And this mobile facility, the broadband facilities increased or enhanced with the 4G, and 5G is going to be you are going to get a speed which is going to be more hundreds of Mbps, and your minimum speed will be you will be getting 1 Gbps, gigabits per second or more, and the objective is to reach 7 gigabits per second according to 5G forum. So now let's learn what is 5G. So the difference between the 4G and 5G is, for the 4G network is limited to only cellular phones, but 5G is we are going to be connected to everything what we have in our house. If I say in a lighter note, even your masala box will have masala dabas in our kitchens going to have 5G enabled. If your masala is going to get over by the end of the month, it will give a signal or text message to your phone, so that it's this kind of masala is going to be over by this month, and you can order it in the either Amazon or in any other online service providers, or you can make a call to a shop nearby and he can fill it, or it can be automated also. So automatically Amazon or Flipkart or any other online service provider is going to fill your boxes even without your knowledge. They will just put it on your door, and they are going to leave, because your items are over in your boxes, so they are going to fill. So if we talk in a much better way, so if we have an old people in our home, they can be monitored. Even their pillbox can be monitored. So if I say, if I'm the objective of reaching 5G is mapped till 2030. So when it is implemented, if by 2040 I will be almost 50 to 60 years of age, if by 2060 my son can monitor my health without coming to my home, but he can verify whether I have taken the morning pills. If I have to take a pill at 8 o'clock, and the pillbox will give a message to me, Mr. Venkatesh, take the medicine. You have to take it in the morning. If I don't take it by 8 o'clock, then it will set an alarm for every 5 or 10 minutes. Then if I don't take for 5 or 10 minutes, then what will do is it will send a message to my son. And if even if I don't respond, after my son makes a call to me, then what it will do is it is considered as an emergency. It will make a call to the doctor. If the doctor finds me in some aberrated condition, then he can put an ambulance to pick up me. So the healthcare is this is one way the healthcare is going to be connected with the 5G. And you can name any device, you can name any machines, even it can be car, it can be a energy meter, it can be a laptop, mobile phones, your homes, doors, locks, everything can be controlled with the help of this 5G devices. And in other words, we call it as IoT. IoT can be enabled only if you have a 5G service. So if the timeline of this is by 2005 we had a 3G, 2010 to 15 to till 20 we are having 4G. From the 20 the 5G is going to start. Now we are going to have mobile phones, 5G enabled mobile phones now. The Xiaomi and Samsung are manufacturing 5G phones, which will be operating at the sub 6 gigahertz bandwidth. By 2030, it is the ultimate goal of this 5G forum to implement the full 5G network, which is enabled with the millimeter waves. So this 5G is going to coexist with the 4G network. So here, the backbone is going to be the 4G network, or the infrastructure, whatever we have with the 4G, it's not going to be removed on a day. Okay, we are going to have a 4G network where this network will act as a backbone for the 5G network. And then we are going to have a 5G macro base stations. And this macro base stations is going to communicate with the all the devices. And micro base stations is going to connect with all the devices inside a home, or like your lights or your fans, or if you have to, if internet of thing comes, every electronic device or every device or every machine in your home is going to be monitored. So for that you need a internet facility at your home. So we are going to place small bulb like structures. That is going to be the nano base stations or pico base stations. You can just place it in a home, and that will act as a base station. That we call it as a small base station. So this 5G is going to have macro base stations and small base stations, and the small base stations will be in the which will have a small coverage area, especially in a working place or in a home or inside a hospital, or that places we are going to have the small base stations. When you are traveling or when you are put into open space, your network is going to be governed by these 5G macro base stations. So here, these macro cells normally work on the lower frequencies, or if you to be precise, it is going to work on the sub 6 gigahertz bandwidth, and till 6 gigahertz it will work. Even the Wi-Fi phones that are coming to the market will work till 6 gigahertz, and preferably if we have to implement the 5G, the networks will be implemented somewhere between 2.4 gigahertz and 3.8 gigahertz. So that is the band that people are working now, where we can provide the mobile communication, or where we can have a macro base stations is going to work on these frequencies. So slowly these from 3.8 they will be moving towards the 5.6 gigahertz. That is the higher band in the sub gigahertz band. And then it is going to be implemented, and the small cells is going to work on millimeter wave bands. So you put anything, it is going to work on millimeter wave bands. And so why these small base stations are preferred for work with millimeter waves, we will discuss later. I will give the detail. And these are the frequencies that are identified. I'm only given only very it is an exhaustive list. We can find it, the link given in the presentation once it is shared, and it is an exhaustive list. But you can find this frequency band is going to be the first how the 5G will be enrolled, because the today's 4G works somewhere between 2100 to 2200 megahertz, and this is the nearer band. So producing a system to this nearer band, or we can use the facilities, whatever used by the 4G can be used for this frequency. So the 5G will roll out by starting on this frequency. Slowly it moved towards 3.5 to 3.7, and again it's moved towards the 5.6 to 5.8 on a higher frequency. And by 2030, the aim is to implement by 2030. The full rollout is by 2030. So 2030 you will be enjoying the 5G with the help of millimeter waves, where the system will work somewhere between 20 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. Okay, so here the frequencies are not yet fixed now. It changes with every country. China works somewhere between 3.6 and 3.8, and India is working in 3.2 to 3.6 gigahertz. So every country adopts a frequency band here. And even when you go to the millimeter wave, countries will adopt different frequency. And once all this rolls out, they will have a common protocol for rollout of the 5G across the globe. So these 5G bands, what I have discussed, I have put it in the words. It is initial frequency bands are going to below 6 gigahertz. And above 6 gigahertz, the starting is going to be between 26 and 28 gigahertz band, and it will significantly provide more capacity. The millimeter wave, since we are talking about 26 gigahertz, 1% of 26 gigahertz will be somewhere 10% will 1% will be, I think it is 2.6 gigahertz. So it is a large bandwidth. So this large bandwidth can accommodate large number of video channels. Normally we require 5 megahertz to put a video channel. So you can put 200 channels in 1 gigahertz. I think we can put 200 channels. So we can increase the capacity by using the millimeter wave. So we have an additional spectrum which is not at all explored for the commercial. These frequencies are used for radars and as well as the military purposes, but commercial purposes these frequencies are not explored till now. So what we are going to establish, we have an unused spectrum, but it has a greater capacity, so you can have more users, more data, and a faster connection. So the future reuse of existing low band spectrum for 5G, as legacy networks will decline in usage. So once we can think that when we reach 2030, the technology will develop such that these backbones, what we are using, this 4G macro cells will diminish. The usage of that macro cells will diminish, and we are going to have this macro cells operating on 5G millimeter wave itself. Okay, so that is what that sentence defines. So this is the pictorial representation of 5G network architecture. So you have a local server, and we have macro cells, micro cells. Macro cell will control a larger area, and the small cells will control in a room or in a house where we are going to use the small cells. Everything is connected. You call a street light, you call any vehicle, you call any device in our day-to-day activity is going to be connected. You name any machine in your laboratory will also be connected. For example, you can extract the data from your network analyzer without coming out of your home. Like now what we have a pandemic situation, we have to do some experiments, or we have to transfer some results to the some other labs or some other industry. What you have to do is we extract it, we have to sit in the computer, or else we can automate these full measurement with the help. We can extract all the data with the help of this 5G system, or even the predicted is you will have operations will be done by robots, which will be controlled by this 5G networks. Okay, so because 5G objective of the 5G is to also have low latency, because an operation it's placed with a human life, so we need to have a high speed of data transfer, and to have a low latency. So 5G network will enable this robotic medical treatments in the future. So here this for 5G will also operate at a OFDM like a 4G LTE, and it is operate based on the same mobile networking principles. It is follow the cellular communication, whatever the rules behind that, it will follow it, right? And the 5G new radio air interface will enhance its OFDM to deliver high degree of flexibility and scalability. And this 5G will not deliver faster, will not only deliver faster, better mobile broadband services, but it also expand to new areas. As I already said, it is also critical for mission critical communication. It can be an medical usage where it is a medical usage where a doctor can sit in his home and he can control the operations or treatment whatever it is given by using a robot, where it is a mission critical. So we have to be react at a faster rate, and we have to give an order to the robot, and robot also has to react faster. So the communication has to come from the doctor to the robot, but that kind of thing can happen with the help of this 5G. And it also connects massive IoT. Massive IoT in the sense you think every switch in your house is connected to an IoT device. Every regulator, every gas, you name any device, in your house, you need every device is connected to an IoT device. Then it is called as a massive IoT, right? Your door, you name anything, your keychain, your pill box, your masala dabas, all are going to have these IoT, and you are going to have massive number of devices there. And this massive number of devices has to connect to a backbone network. That is possible only with the 5G enabled devices. And this is enabled by many new 5G air interface design techniques, and it is self-contained now with the TDD subframe design. So these are all basebands. Now we'll discuss about 5G base stations. The 5G base stations can be classified as macro cell base stations and small cell base stations. So the macro cell base stations are one what we have now, what we are seeing now in our area. We can see there are many of the what we normally call it as towers. So these are the base stations or massive structures which are giving us the mobile connectivity, and that is 4G base stations. We can see now 5G is also going to have macro cell base stations, and this 5G macro cell base stations are going to be MIMO based. It is going to be a multiple input, massive MIMO. It is not only going to have 5 or 6 antennas or 10 or 12 antennas. It's going to have hundreds of antennas in it. And the small cell base stations are what you're going to have inside our home or inside an office area or in a smaller area wherever we need to have a coverage. We are going to have the small cell base stations. And the small cell base stations, we have a micro base station that will cover a few hundreds of meters or few tens of meters. The picocell base stations and femtocell base stations will cover few tens of meters. It is going to cover very smaller area, like what I said, it is in an office or it in a home. It will cover where these picocells and femtocells are going to cover these areas. And if I say it is a MIMO, MIMO is not going to put a large beam. It is going to have multiple beams at the same time. So if it is going to have multiple input, multiple output of antenna, that means that it is going to have, if it is massive MIMO, it is going to have hundreds of antennas, right? Or it is going to have an array of 100 cross 100 antenna. So if it is a massive MIMO antenna, what happens is if you have hundreds of antenna, that means that 100 cross 100, it is 10,000 beams can be produced at the same time. That is the objective of having a MIMO beam steering. So 10,000 beams, and each beam is going to cover a single user, right? When you walk on a street, this beam is going to track you, and you are going to connect with a single beam, right? So you are going to connect it with a single beam. So MIMO beam steering, it's going to steer the beam all over the area, but that means that 10,000 beams will be created. This 10,000 beams will connect to the 10,000 user, and it will find the best path, or it will switch beams between the user so that you will get an optimum beam, so that you have a high quality of communication. And it also increases efficiency, but also since it reduces interference also. These beams are going to be orthogonal. So since the beams are going to be orthogonal, these beams will reduce unwanted radio signals. And this figure shows an Ericsson developed MIMO antenna, I think it is a 10 cross 10, 3, 6. It is a 8 cross 8 MIMO antenna. So massive will have hundreds of massive MIMO will have hundreds of antennas built on it. So next is femtocell base station. The femtocell base stations are physically very small, and it's going to cost very low cost, and it's going to be energy efficient, and it is generally is going to be self-installable. Like what we have our Wi-Fi routers in our home. We don't need any technical person to install it. You just go and plug and play kind of device is going to be the femtocell base stations. So you not increase your coverage in your home. You go to the market and buy, or you order in a store. You can get it. You can directly install in the directly play, give a power supply. It's going to be installed somewhere in your home by you itself. So with this femtocells are solve the coverage problems. Why we need this femtocells is if we are going to move towards the millimeter wave, these millimeter waves are highly, as the frequency increases, the attenuation level also increases, and it can be easily abstracted by the system, abstracted by the walls or any other medium. So what we are going to have is, in order to have the indoor communication, we are going to have an inbuilt base stations in the indoors, and that indoor will communicate to the macro base stations. And also we'll have it will not only cover the mobile communication area, it will cover heterogeneous networks, right? It can cover IoT or any other networks that is to be communicated. It will be covered by these femtocell base stations. This base stations can be installed by you itself. You have to find an optimum place to place it. You give a you can how we install a Wi-Fi router. It can be installed in your home by you itself. It is a plug and play kind of device, and then it can be configured by the help of the service provider or the subscribers. And this femtocell base station typically will operate in the licensed spectrum, and you can use the same frequency, or your femtocell will use a different millimeter wave band, and your macro station will use a different frequency band, but it will communicate between these. Then they will have a broadband router which will communicate between these high frequency and low frequency base stations. So here, the future is by 2030, the future is going to be 5G, and in order to obtain reach the goals of 5G, the normal antennas will not useful. So we should move towards multi-beam antenna. So multi-beam antenna is one of the solution for obtaining or reaching the goals of 5G, where you should have a reliable, high speed and low latency communication. One solution is using the multi-beam antennas. So in this section, what we are going to learn is, we are going to learn about what are the various methods of multi-beam antennas we have, how to choose optimum type of multi-beam antenna design, and how to implement it. What are the open solutions, open problems are there in the design of multi-beam antennas? How we can solve it can be discussed in the following session. So here, in order to achieve the high data rate or system requirements of 5G, we have to move towards the millimeter wave. So the current technology what we have, especially in India, the millimeter wave technology we have not adopted for commercial, because we have a millimeter wave laboratory in Samir, Kolkata. And even if you use if we have a testing facility for a low frequency itself, it is going to cost crores of money. If you have a fully established RF lab, from a network analyzer to an anechoic chamber, you have to spend at least 2 to 3 crores minimum. So if we are going for high frequency, the cost of developing those labs becomes multifold. Okay, so India, we don't have such facility for millimeter wave. As of my knowledge, one such lab is available in Kolkata, in Samir Microwave Center, Millimeter Wave Center. So here, these millimeter wave is going to be the future. So the future is we need to develop devices, not only devices, cost-effective devices for the millimeter wave. That is another open problem what we have, where the cost-effective millimeter wave components is an open problem. So we don't have a cost-effective millimeter wave components. So RF components are always costly. So millimeter wave components are is costlier now. If we are able to produce or find a process that is going to reduce the manufacturing of these millimeter wave components, then we can very fastly adopt the millimeter wave frequency. So in spite of having a large bandwidth, this millimeter waves suffer from free space loss and blockage. So we know that as the frequency increases, it gets attenuates at a faster rate, especially millimeter waves gets attenuates at a faster rate. We cannot rely for a long distance communication. That's why we go for small cells. We are going to have thousands of base stations in an area. So that's why we have to keep more base stations for a 5G communication. So as the distance increases, it has a high attenuation and it also has a high blockage. That means that it will not be able to penetrate how a low frequency signal penetrates your windows or your building. But at the frequency increases, there will be severe interference or blockage from the structures, and that has to be taken care of. And in order to, but this can be overcome by using a high gain directional beam. That if we have a high gain directional beam, so if I can improve the gain of the signal, if I increase the power level of the signal, then these attenuation effects can be minimalized, right? If I pump a more power, then I can have a more distance can be covered. So similarly, this directional beam are going to be a high gain directional beam, which are going to pump a high power, and this high power directional beam will enhance the signal to noise ratio or signal to interference and noise ratio, and also reduces the Doppler effect, and it also improves the data security because it is connected to user to user. It is like a point-to-point communication between the base station and to the user. So there is no way that your signal can be picked up by some other else, and the data is very more secure when compared to our whatever the communication network what we use now. And this high gain directional beam can be used for long range millimeter wave also. You have a line of sight link between a user and the base station over a long distance. And this narrow beam, if I have a single narrow beam, then this cannot be used for multiple uses, right? So yeah, if I have to accommodate it, then I have to have the technology is to be a directional beam, but I have to have multiple number of directional beam. So if I have to adapt multiple number of directional beam, the multiple users, then I have to design an antenna which produces multiple beams. Normally, when you talk about array of antennas, the outcome of the array of antennas is going to be only one beam at some direction, right? But here, this is an advanced version of the array of antennas where these antenna will have a capacity to have a directional beam over multiple distances. And if we have this single directional beam, then the single directional beam can be steered electronically or mechanically. But in this case, if I'm going to have multiple directional beam, mechanical steering will not help. Even we are now we are coming out of mechanical steering. Even the radars, they are using the electrical steering now, electronic steering now. But mechanical steering is still in place. Even your base stations, what we have in our fields, will have a screw type where we can steer the beam with adjusting the mechanical steering. So see, if we have a multiple directional beam, only the electronic control is feasible. Mechanical control is not feasible because we have to adapt. We have to change the direction of beams from time to time. So that is required with the multiple directional beam. So here, this image or this picture will tell you the scenario of a multiple beam antenna, where you have a base station antenna. It produces a multiple beam which communicates to multiple customers with a single beam. Each beam talks to a single user. One is connected to a couple of them are connected to vehicle, and one is connected to a mobile user, and another one is connected to connected to an office or an apartment, and another one is connected to a residential area. So we can see that this beam steering is both horizontal and vertical. It not only steers in the horizontal direction, but tends to steer the beam in the vertical direction. So think about the complexity of the design of a multiple beam antenna. Even steering a single beam both vertically and vertical or horizontal is a difficult task. And now we are going to steer, we are going to have an antenna which steers multiple beams, both horizontally as well as vertically. So this multi-beam antenna, which is going to be used for 5G base stations, is going to be a very complex structure that has evolved in the wireless communication. So this multiple beam antenna is the key to enable massive MIMO. Unless we have multi-beam antennas, we cannot achieve the goals of the 5G. The 5G, the goal is we have to have a low latency. That is, you have to very less delay time between the two users, or from a device to a user. You should have a very less time, and also you should have a high data rate, and you should also have high data rate and reliable communication also. So if we have to achieve this, the one solution is, or one possible solution is, having multi-beam antennas. So here, these multi-beam antennas, these orthogonal beams will have, we are going to have, these beams are going to be orthogonal. So these, again, the complexity of the problem increases again. We are going to generate the beam with which is going to be orthogonal. So orthogonal in the sense, it can be either orthogonal with the frequency, either it can be orthogonal with the time, or it can be orthogonal with the polarization, or anything. It can be of any orthogonality. Right? For example, one user and another user can have orthogonal polarization. One can be a right-handed circular polarized, other can be left-hand circular polarized. So these going to be orthogonal polarization, or one user can have a vertical polarization and another one have a horizontal polarization, depending upon the application. This orthogonality also has to be checked. So if this can be achieved, then we can have a high capacity wireless communication, and this orthogonality will also be significant for the frequency use, right? So, and these mobile based, these multi-beam antennas, now it is used in radar and satellite communication system. And you can see that these, whatever the network what we are having today in the radar and satellite communication system, it is going to be very bulky, expensive also, and it's going to be a very large structure, because these signals, these radars and these satellite communication have not moved to millimeter wave fully. It is operates at the low frequency. Then the antenna structure is going to be very large. Then if you have multiple antennas, for example, if you have multiple beams, then you have to have multiple antennas. Then the size of the antenna is going to be a few tens of meters. You can see in any satellite, the antenna structure will be such a bulky device. And it is going, if you have to fabricate that structure, it is going to be very expensive also. So now when we move towards the millimeter waves, what happens? The wavelength reduces automatically. In millimeter waves, you have a very smaller wavelength. It's going to be a fraction of millimeters. If it is going to be a fraction of millimeters, then the antenna structure is going to be very small. So then in a given small area itself, we can accommodate hundreds of antenna. So when you compare 6 gigahertz and 10 gigahertz, so the antenna size is going to be 10 times lesser. So that means that when in the place of I'm having 10 antennas, I am going to can have hundreds of antennas at the 60 gigahertz. 66 gigahertz to 72 gigahertz is an identified millimeter wave band for 5G communication. And this 6 gigahertz, I can accommodate hundreds of antenna in the place of 6 gigahertz antenna. So you can have a same physical area, more number of antennas. That means that if you have a more number of antennas, then you have a higher array gain. So these are all correlated. It has a relation. So, and again, and if you are able to get the channel information, if the channel information can be exploited, then we can have, if the channel is good, then we have to pump very less amount of power. If the channel is bad, then we have to pump a high amount of power. And if the channel information can be exploited, then we have to adaptively change the characteristics of every beam. Each beam will not pump the same amount of power. So it has to be adaptive, the multi-beam to be adaptive for 5G communication. If the channel information is available, then it forms a feedback network, and from the feedback from the channel information, the beam steering can be happen, as well as the amount of power or the data that can be pumped can also be decided. Okay, so if again it is going to be an orthogonal beams, so that means that you are going to have uncorrelated multipath channels. Even if you have adjacent frequency, if it is a orthogonally polarized, then you will not, then you can send the data, and that means that you have a multipath channels. And if this happens, the channel capacity is increased automatically, and it also improves the link reliability, and it also reduces the outage probability. So you will have a reliable communication with the help of these multi-beam antennas. So these multi-beam antennas can be classified into 3 types. One is passive multi-beam antennas, and another one is multi-beam phased array antennas, and another one is digital multi-beam antennas. So there are certain designs with the passive multi-beam antennas and multi-beam phased array antennas, and digital multi-beam antennas is an evolving area where we are going to combine the area of baseband and RF. It has to work synchronizingly. It has to work hand in hand. So digital multi-beam antennas is going to be the future for the multi-beam antenna for 5G communication. So here, the passive multi-beam antennas, from the word we can come to conclusion that it will not have any active components. This beamforming network will not have any active components. It is controlled by the passive components, and it will have multiple number of ports. So that means that for each direction you will have a multiple number of ports. So for multiple number of ports means each port will be connected to a transceiver. You have to choose a transceiver to transmit in a certain direction. So you have to switch between the transceiver to transmit the signal transmit the wave in a certain direction. So if I have to generate n number of ports, n number of beam, then I will have n number of ports, and these n number of ports will be connected to n number of ports will be connected to n number of transceiver network. By selecting the proper transceiver, the direction of beam can be controlled. So here the resolution of beam is controlled by the beam width, because here the antenna is fixed. So here the antenna is fixed because we are going to switch the beam width by switching the transceiver. So here it depends upon the resolution of the antenna what we have chosen. So you have to choose a narrow beam antenna, and if the narrow beam is not very narrower, so then it is the beam width is the resolution of this, or the number of users that can be accommodated by the this kind of antenna is limited because of the beam width of the antenna. And this performance of these passive multi-beam antennas is analyzed using the scanning range, and it is they are determined by the polarization, gain, side lobe level, bandwidth, port isolation, and efficiency. The scanning ranges from which area to from which angle to which angle it can cover, the coverage area, and the polarization is how good is polarization after transmitting, and what is the gain of the antenna, and what is the side lobe level of the antenna what we are going to use, what is the bandwidth limitation of that antenna, and especially the port isolation, because we are going to have multiple transceivers which is going to be closely packed. It is have a multiple ports. If you have a multiple ports, that could be definitely there will be leakage from one port to another port. So how good these ports are isolated will also affect the efficiency of the passive multi-beam antennas. These passive multi-beam antennas are classified as antennas with based on reflectors, antennas based on lenses, antennas based on beamforming circuits. So here, let us see an antenna based on reflectors. So here it is operates on quasi-optics. This like what we have a dish antenna here, or a parabolic reflector. So if we have a parabolic reflector, depending upon where you are going to excite the signal, based on that we are going to have different angle of transmission for this antenna, or angle of reflection for this antenna. So you have a reflector by which transceiver you choose. If I choose the red transceiver, or the transceiver number 2, then the signal is going to be vertical to the reflector. or if I choose the port number 1, it is going to be with some angle, positive angle from this reference point. So if I have a nth one, then I'm going to have a reflector somewhere near here. So depending upon which port you choose, then it's going to have the we have a multiple beam by the help of this reflector. And this dish reflector is characterized by its focal length and its diameter, and what is the distance between separation between the feeds that will determine the design of this reflector. So now, depending upon the as I already said, depending upon what transceiver you choose, the angle is selected. Okay, but this parameters f by d and small d, f is the focal length, d is the diameter, and d is the distance between the ports. This ratio will determine the beam separation. That means that you cannot very closely place these ports, or you cannot far away place this. Okay, so we have to find an optimal position between the focal length and the focal length and diameter, optimal focal length and diameter, and the distance between the ports. So here, if we keep this ports very closer, and if the d is very small, that means that the signal can cross couple between each other. You can see here, if these are very closely placed, this is a horn antenna. Let us imagine that this is a horn antenna. This beam and this beam can couple. It can interact with each other. So we have to have an optimum distance d, such that the beam of this horn and this horn doesn't interfere with each other. So that is a bottleneck in this design. And also it will spill over loss of the reflector. There could be a leakage from this reflector. There could be a leakage from the reflector, and this reflector will alter the polarization. The polarization will be degraded, and because of the mutual coupling between feed horn antennas. If D is not optimum, it will affect the parameters that are affected are it will affect the polarization degradation. So now what we do is we have to change the design. So one design is we can have a reflector, we can have a ports, or we can have a transceiver in this one, or we can change the location of these ports, or we can offset these transceivers, or we can change the place where we have this transceiver and receiver, or we can offset the position of these feeder ports, and then it will increase the, or it will reduce the cross coupling between these poles, and it also reduce the polarization degradation also, and it also there will be a distortion of radiation pattern because of blockage of this device. So since we have in front of this, we are having these feed antennas. So what happens? It will block the beams which are coming in this direction. So what it happens is, it is blockage of feeding antennas will happen. So therefore we can move towards offset fed reflectors. That means that it is like this. We can change the position of the antenna feeders as well as the reflector, such that the we can get the multiple beam arrays, but we have slightly shifted the position of the reflector and the feed antennas. And another one is we can have multiple reflectors, or a bifocal dual reflector, and this is a multiple reflectors. This will increase the aperture efficiency, and this is one kind of reflector which is used in satellite communication. You have multiple feed arrays, and you have multiple. This is sub reflector. This is a main reflector, and then we can have then we can connect it to where then we have a multiple beams, and we can, by switching the matrix for which feed you have to choose, then we have a multiple beams here. So this is one is adopted in the satellite communication. And here now we have learned what is the PMBS based on reflector. Now what we are going to analyze what are the issues in this. Here in this array of, if you use array of horn antenna, this horn antenna will, as a feed, it will reduce the performance of the system because of the high cross polarization level and side lobe levels, because we have seen that in the each antenna, it have a tendency to, the radiation pattern will have a tendency to fall on each other. So even if you have an optimum distance, somewhere here you can have a radiation pattern such that it will interact with each other from antenna 1 and antenna 2. So what happens is it will create cross polarization level, and the side lobes can also affect the signal. So if I have a side lobe here, that side lobe is going to interact with the lobe of this, interact with the main lobe of this antenna. So that means that it is going to interact here. So it generates a cross coupling, and that will affect the polarization of the signal, and it will create polarization impurity, and it will also create spillover losses. Now this feeding network can be improved by using, in the place of using horn antennas, we can use printed radiated elements. We can use slot antennas, or you can use any other printed radiated, it can be any radiating element, like it can be an array of patch antenna, it can be array of a dipole. You can use any printed radiating elements, or you can use a leaky wave slots. So like you can use a slot arrays, slot antenna, which will, or you can use a electromagnetic band gap antenna, where you can design an antenna with electromagnetic band gaps, or you can use a modified step horns, or you can use a hard or soft horn antennas. And also you can these are the feeding networks that can be used to improve the performance of this kind of reflector based antennas. Now the lowest the cross polarization, by using this kind of feedbacks, feeding networks, what we can do is this are all reported, and this reduces the cross polarization. It also increases the aperture efficiency, and it also provides mutual coupling, and very specifically it has a low profile. So if you take a printed antenna and a horn antenna, this printed antennas will have a low profile. It would not any projection coming out of the substrate, or any mechanical structure that is projecting out of it, but it also have these leaky wave slot arrays and printed radiated elements. You can see that these are all low profile antennas. So it has a low profile, which will be very useful in satellite communication. So this is the example of a printed feed antenna. So this is a you have a horn antennas. So this is the PMBAs are based on. Here the reflector is replaced with the printed reflector. So in the PMBAs based on this reflector, in the place of parabolic reflector, we have used a printed reflector. So here this printed reflector will give you the high performance, because it has the weight of the device is reduced. Weight of the device is reduced, and also it has a low profile also. So again, if we have a parabolic reflector, it is a metallic structure. If it is a metallic structure, then it is going to have a heavy weight. Then you have to give support for it, and then it has a heavy weight. And since it is such a large structure, the size and cost of the system increases. So it can be one way, it can be replaced with the help of the wire meshes. We can replace the reflector, solid reflector, with the help of wire meshes, closely placed meshes, that will reduce the weight and size of the system. Our other method is, as I said, it is a planar reflector can be used, and this planar reflector, when compared to other two alternatives, either metallic reflector or mesh reflector, it will be low profile, low cost, and weight is also very lighter when compared to even wire meshes. And this shows one of the planar reflector, and this is a cylindrically placed planar reflector is shown here. And these planar reflector will have a solid metallic ground plane. You will have a ground plane, and then you will have a substrate. Then we will have a reflector antenna structure, and then it will be either it can be center fed or offset fed depending upon the requirement. And the system volume is very much reduced when you compare when you replace a very big metallic reflector with a PCB, then the system volume is very highly reduced, and also this structure reduces the spillover losses. And this kind of antennas can be found in automotive radars. So if you have the vehicles which has a vehicular communication technology can adopt these antennas, or automotive radars will have this kind of reflector. So these automotive radars will have a planar reflector, and it is that can be used in detecting the vehicles. And next one is based on the lenses. So here in the place of reflector, we are going to place lenses. So I'm not a great exponent of lenses, and I have very less knowledge in the lenses. I'm just giving a layout here where you have a hemispherical lens and a circular lens. So you will have a feed depending upon the incident wave. The number of waves can be, the number of beams can be controlled. And this is a normal homogeneous lens. And this is a gradient index Lunenburg lens, which is used for the switching of beams. And this is a half Maxwell fisheye lens used for multiple beam antennas. And the next one is PMBS, which is based on the beam forming circuits. So beam forming circuits, in the sense, these beam forming circuits we are going to have an antenna without the reflector. We are going to have a normal array where we are going to switch the beam with the help of this beam forming circuit. So this beam forming circuit, the angle can be controlled with the help of this phase shifting transmission lines and directional couplers. So one way of beam forming. Okay, so here the beam forming is controlled with the help of phase shifting transmission lines and directional couplers. So here the angular resolution, how much beam can be, how much angle it can cover, the angular resolution, whether it can, that if it has a 10-degree angular resolution, that means that every 10 degree it can switch the beam. Okay, or the distance between one beam and angular separation is going to be a 10 degree. That is called as an angular resolution. So here, if I have to produce n number of beams, similarly, I have to have n number of ports to generate this n number of beams. So, and this beams are going to be realized with the help of transmission lines, and the transmission lines will have a dispersive property, and we know that the transmission line characteristic changes with frequency. So here the beam angle and beam width changes with the frequency. So these beamforming networks are going to be realized with the help of transmission lines. And since we are having these kind of transmission lines, so what happens is the beam and beam width are changes with the frequency. So here these beamforming circuits can be realized with the help of Butler matrix and Blast matrix. Butler matrix is a very famous beamforming circuit. So here the Butler matrix can be realized with the help of the transmission line and the 90-degree hybrid couplers. So here we have a 4 cross n cross m Butler matrix. Here it is a 4 cross 4 Butler matrix, what we have here, where it is fed to the 4 antennas and the 4 ports. So this, which antenna is depending upon, by choosing the proper content, then we can uniform linear array, the beam can be switched between this with the help of this Butler matrix. So you can generate 4 beams. So depending upon the which port is energized, we can generate 4 beams. So if you want to learn more about the Butler matrix, and that you can refer this paper. That is the paper which was that is Jesse Butler and Ralph Lowe are the founders of this Butler matrix. To have a further insight, you can read this paper, and it is available in the presentation. So here, the problem with the Butler matrix is, if I have to increase the number of beams, then I have to increase the number of couplers and phase shifters. So it becomes a complex layout. So, and if it becomes a complex layout, or it is a complicated layout, that means that I'm going to put number of components between the input side and the output side. So that means that these are going to be passive components. We are not going to put any active components here. We are going to realize with the help of the passive components. So if I put a passive component here, and then what happens is, if I put more number of passive components, so then you are going to have more number of, then you are going to have more losses. You are going to have more insertion loss between the input and the output. And by using 180-degree hybrid couplers and reflective matrices, then we can reduce the total number of components in a Butler matrix. And in also to reduce the side lobe level by by using the Butler matrix, where there are multiple number of modified Butler matrices are reported across the literature. You can find it in the IEEE or IEEE. You can find modified Butler matrices in order to reduce the side lobe level and crossover level of beams. It is multiple papers are reported in the design of this modified Butler matrices. And this Butler matrix can be realized with any transmission line. It can be a microstrip, it can be a coplanar waveguide or slotted line, or it can be any artificial transmission line. It can be CMOS design, or it can be even also for a hollow waveguide. To name any transmission line, high frequency transmission line, these Butler matrices can be created. These Butler matrix are these Butler matrix based beamforming circuits are found for finding application in radar, fixed wireless access, and satellite communication. And this figure shows a realization of Butler matrix with the help of SIW technology. So you have a SIW device here. These are the slotted antennas, and this is a SIW technology where we have these Butler matrix realized with the help of the SIW technology. Okay, and the advantage of using this SIW is planar, and if it is a planar, it has a low profile, and if you have a good fabrication facility, it is easy to fabricate also, and it has a loss is very low when compared to other transmission lines. The SIW, that's why this design is realized with the help of surface integrated waveguide. And much more flexible beamforming circuit when compared to these Butler matrix is blast matrix, and this blast matrix can generate arbitrary number of beams. Okay, so these are with arbitrary direction and distinct pattern shape. So that gives a flexibility here. You can generate only 4 beam, and here, sir. Hello. Can I continue? Hello.
Yes, sir. You can continue.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
No, sir.
Ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am.
Who is?
Can I continue, ma'am?
Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Sir, you can continue, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. So I think it is visible.
Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So here, it is here this blast matrix is it gives a flexibility when compared to the when compared to the Butler matrix. And here we can generate arbitrary number of beams with arbitrary direction and a distinct pattern. And here this blast matrix consists of N traveling feed lines and M traveling M transmission lines. That's these M transmission lines serves as input to the array. So these are the N trans. Ma'am. So I'm continuing. So we can see that the N transmission lines, these N transmission lines are connected to the uniform linear array ULA. So here it is connected to the antenna here. These are the N transmission lines, and these M which is connected to the another set of M transmission lines. So at the junctions, intersection between these two M lines and N lines, these are the N lines, these are the M lines. So in the between these two M lines, to N and M lines, we have an intersection. In this intersection, we are going to place a lossless phase shifter and a couplers. We are going to place couplers and lossless phase shifter between these two at the intersection point. And this network is a lossy network because we are connecting it to a matched load at the one end. We are connecting this transmission line to a matching load. So we will have a this network is a lossy network, but it reduces the efficiency. This network can be has a reduced efficiency with the relaxed requirements of orthogonality of beams. So here this lossless BLAS matrix still it not realized because it needs a coupling values near unity. The coupler values you need a unit value so that these BLAS matrix are not lossless BLAS matrix are not yet realized. So again, it is a research problem you can look into. I don't know whether it can be realized in the future also, but you can still, if you are interested, you can search it up. So here, the loss that is occurring in the BLAS matrix can be realized or minimized with the help of converting this BLAS matrix is a non-linear multivariable problem that can be transformed into a linear one-variable problem, and then you can use a Gram-Schmidt alternalization. You can solve that equation, and then you can realize it. Then you can reduce the BLAS matrix loss in the BLAS matrix. So to miniaturize this footprint, beamforming circuit and antennas can be integrated into a single component here. So here these all the devices, whatever, if either it is a Butler matrix or the BLAS matrix, it is on a single layer. You can realize with the planar technology itself, or you can even design with the help of the SAW technology. Then what happens is you can miniaturize the footprint. The 3D becomes a 2D structure. So then you can miniaturize the footprint, and it can be integrated into a single component, or integrate a single component. So, but what happens with when you integrate a single component, you'll have a very minor spurious beams. For if your application, if the minor beams doesn't it's not a bottleneck, then you can go for integrating this antenna and the beamforming circuit in a single component. And another special case of this matrix is Nolan matrix. So in the Nolan matrix, it uses the serial feeding network with no loss and avoids crossovers also. So here this Nolan matrix, it serially connects the antenna. So it doesn't connect the antenna parallelly. So if it is parallelly connected, we are having crossovers here. So you see in the Butler matrix, this is called as crossover. So if I have the crossover, then the fabrication becomes slightly difficult. So to avoid this, we have to follow either you have to use a via kind of structure, and so here this Nolan matrix avoids these crossovers, and also it will reduces the loss. So here since it creates the dispersive beam splitting can be reduced by using delay compensation that can be by connecting in order to correct the phase shift that has to be given to the proper antennas. Then we can use delay lines compensation delay lines can be used. If you use this, that will help you to find help you to get broadband operation for the same structure. And next kind of multi-beam phased array antenna is next type of multi-beam antenna is multi-beam phased array antenna. So I think many of us know what is a phased array antenna. So here the same phased array antenna structure can be realized with multi-beam, right? So if you can visualize the phased array antenna, you will have multiple phase shifters where the phase shifter can be switched. If the phase shift is switched, then the beam is also switching. So here the same concept is used. We are going to have a multi-beam phased array antenna. So in the previous case, what I have told, you can switch a single beam. So now we are going to switch the multiple beam by controlling the phase shift between the feeds, phase shift and amplitude between the beams or the radiating elements. So PMBAs, we have a prefixed number of beams at prefixed direction, but phased array antennas will help us to create arbitrary direction. So in the most cases, what you discussed in the earlier sections, we can find that the number of feeds will control the antenna structure or the beam direction. But here in the phased array antenna, can be we can switch the beam any arbitrary angle depending upon the accuracy of your design. We can switch beam between any angle. So if you can switch an angle between 1 degree, 10 degree, 20 degree, or any degree, we can switch it depending upon your design. That is in our hand. So that gives a flexibility to design and a phased array antenna with the arbitrary beam direction. So this phased array antenna without multi-beam, it is used in military, commercial radar, satellite communication. Yeah, it is not imagining system. It is imaging system. Sorry for that. It is imaging systems. All you use phased array antennas. So here the phased array antennas can be broadly classified as passive phased array and active phased array antennas. And again, these phased array antennas, the phase shift is controlled by either the phase shift can be controlled at the RF or at the IF or at the baseband. BB stands for baseband. Either of the phase shifting techniques can be used, but that depends upon how good you're familiar with this, and each design has its own bottlenecks that we will discuss in the coming slides. So these phased array antennas are widely employed. You can find it in multiple applications. You can find in any radar that is in the field. We can see that they will normally adapt for passive MBBAs. If I have n RF channels, and if I have m array elements, it will have n RF channels, and or it will have the n RF channels will be connected to m elements, and each elements will be separated with the distance d. So here, each channel, a transceiver is connected to form a beamforming network via a duplexer or a switch or power control level of a single beam. In order to get multiple beam, in normal phased array antennas, you will have only one input feed. It will be connected to a one transceiver. So in order to get a multiple beam, we are connecting it to a multiple transceiver circuits, and this multiple transceiver circuits is either connected to a duplexer or a switch. So depending upon the switching which transceiver, and depending upon the switching of the phase shift, we can control the arbitrary beam. So here each element is connected to n channels through a phase shifter. So the phase shifter, number of phase shifter is whatever it's required is equal to the number of beams and number of elements. So it will be, we require n cross m phase shifter to realize a multiple beam phase shifter. So this is the schematic diagram of our passive MBBS. Here, this is this beamforming network where this represents the phase shifter phi 11, phi 12 or phase shift that has to be given to the corresponding antenna. So that is fed by the different transceiver. So this entire beamforming network is formed by passive devices. These variable phase shifters are formed by using the it can be a delay lines, or it can be a MEMS switch. It is a phase shifter using MEMS switches, or it can be it can be used phase shifter using a varactor diode based, or any kind of phase shifter you can use here. Or here you can use a variable phase shifter here, and if it is a variable phase shifter is used here, and depending upon the phase varied, and the direction of the beam also varies. And here this is the transceiver. So this phase values can be calculated, or the phase difference between the adjacent networks can be calculated by using this formula. And if this passive MBPAS has larger inter-element distances, and if we have a larger inter-element distance, then we'll have a narrower bandwidth, but it reduces the scanning range, and it also gives you the grating lobes. We know that if we increase the distance between the two elements in a phased array, it will create grating lobes. So similar problem is faced here. So if we can increase the inter-element distance, it will give you a narrower beam width. But if the narrower beam width is obtained, but it will reduce the scanning range, and it also generates grating lobes. Now we can go to the active MBPAS. So the difference between passive and active is, so in the beamforming network, you're going to have a LNA and a power amplifier and a duplexer stuff, or a switch. So here we can see, so what we have a transmit and receive. So in order to separate the transmit and receive, we have a beamforming network, we have a bandpass filter, and we have a separate duplexer, and then we have a LNA and power amplifier, and and the beam is control. The beam is beam control happens with the help of phase shifter network, but it is energized or it is powered by using a low noise power amplifier, or the input signal is boosted with the help of the low noise amplifier. So yeah, this active part usage is the only separation between the passive MPBS and active MPBS. So here the RF phase shifter is placed between these amplifier section and the mixers, and in certain designs we place a limiter here where in order to reduce the power level. If the power level if there's surge in the power level, we have to protect it. So for limiter can be added in front of the LNA for protection, and this system increases the noise figure and also receiving sensitivity, because we are putting a LNA at the input side, so that the signal is amplified, so that improves the sensitivity of the sensitivity of the system, and also it generates high level of RF power, and it gives a better system linearity. And it has a since we are using active devices, power efficiency is going to ultimately high, and the phase shifting and space requirements. So here the phase shifting circuit is very similar to what we used in the passive. So here we are going to have same space requirements. We can even adapt to the same design also there, and the side lobes can be controlled by a variable attenuator. So we have to control the side lobes. So if I have to control the side lobes, then I have to control the power that has to be fed to the individual element. So the individual element power can be adjusted by adjusting the power that is fed to this phase shifter, or after the phase shifter we can add a variable attenuator to reduce the power. So here this is one of the realized active circuit, and it is a 4-bit which is MBPAS, which is generated with the 4-bit phase shifter, which is realized in silicon germanium BiCMOS technology, which is operated at Q point. And the major problem with active MBPAS, it is a very complex system. It is a very complex system of active and passive components, and if you have to commercialize it, we need complexity to be reduced. And also, if you have to do research in this section, you just think of fabricating all this stuff. You have to spend half of your salary, at least half of your salary to half of your yearly salary to fabricate this. So that is a bottleneck. It is a system complexity, and even if it goes for production, and if it is going to be, it's not going to be very much easy. So we can find a very less literature when in the when compared to the passive multiband power multiband phased array antennas. So now let us discuss about the phase shifting circuit. This phase shifting can happen in either in the RF or in the IF or in the baseband. And if it happens in the RF, it is done with the help of the pin diode, FET or MEMS switch, or magnetic field controlled ferrite phase shifters, solid state phase shifters with the CMOS or gallium arsenide technology. So the phase shifter can be realized with the help of transmission line with pin diode or any switches, or it can be designed with the help of field controlled magnetic field controlled ferrite phase shifters, or it can be a solid state phase shifter with the help of a CMOS or gallium arsenide technology. The problem with the RF phase shifter is it gives a poor isolation, because we have to put these transmission lines in open. So when you put transmission lines in open, and then there is high possibility that there will be interaction between these adjacent transmission lines. So it has a poor isolation, and there will be an amplitude variation in the transmission line also. So that is a problem with this RF phase shifter, and this happens because of the phase shifting states, because we are switching between the states, and then there can be, because we are going to put a lot of power in the circuit, then it will create a increasing temperature, and if the phase shift and power doesn't work good, then the direction of beam is going to be not perfect. So because you have to have a perfect phase shift and perfect amplitude to have a perfect direction of the beam. So if the RF phase shifter doesn't doesn't work perfectly, then the beam direction and pattern shape will surely affect. So again, the manufacturing, it is very sensitive to manufacturing inaccuracy, because we normally talk in millimeters, and we are manufacturing accuracy. Normally we say that normally if give a PCB manufacturer, if you give an antenna, they will say that I can manufacture till 0.5 millimeter. So that means that he can manufacture till 0.5 millimeter. So be less than that he cannot manufacture, and this 0.5 millimeter should be perfectly 0.5 millimeter, and it should not be larger than that, or it should not be if my design says that the length should be 1.5 millimeter, and if that is not manufacturing accuracy is not good, if the design is 1.7 or 1.8, think in millimeter waves, what will happen to the phase shift? It will increase in multifold. So therefore it will the manufacturing inaccuracy will affect these RF phase shifter. And it also we are going to use transmission lines and also switches, and the switches are going to be very lossy, and power combining and distributing circuits, these are all lossy circuits. Transmission lines, switches, and this power combining or distributing circuits, we are going to have introduce loss to it, and it gives a high insertion loss, and this effect will be more severe when we move towards millimeter waves or terahertz circuits. But we can move towards IF or baseband phase shifting. We can control the phase, it's IF or baseband itself. But the problem with the IF and baseband is, even in IF it will be going to be in few hundreds of megahertz. Then the length of the transmission line is going to be longer. If it is in a few hundreds of megahertz, lambda will be few centimeter, few centimeters. So if it is again the baseband, again you can think that you'll have a much longer transmission lines. So as we when you go to the IF and the baseband, this phase shifter needs very long transmission lines when compared to the RF. Very long. We cannot even fabricate in a PCB. So we have to get a very long line. So this we can, and also this IF and baseband phase shifting will give you a narrow band of operation. We cannot get a wide band of operation. We'll get a very narrow band of operation. But this can be overcome with the help of phase shifting, with the help of local oscillators. We can provide local oscillators where we can introduce the phase shift of the local oscillator itself. But the cost of the device will increase, because we have to add n number of local oscillator for n beams. So, and you need to have a m number of mixers associated with the controlling circuit. The cost of the circuit and complexity of the circuit increases. So that, but we can if you want to have a highly accurate system, which you are going to design for, if you are going to design for military applications or very highly sensitive applications, then you can go for this kind of design. So even at IF and baseband, we can use this yellow phase shift in spite of going for the transmission line based phase shifter. We can go with the IF local oscillator in the IF and baseband itself. So you can easily generate frequencies at IF and baseband. That can be done with the help of high frequency divided clock or direct DDS or the direct digital synthesis, variable gain amplifier based phase rotators, or these can be used at the low frequencies, which is very much easier when compared to the compared to the RF frequencies. So this, if we can able to realize that, then we can able to generate a finer beam scanning due to high precision phase shift. And we are going towards the last type, that is the active digital multiple beam antennas. So here the active digital multiple beam antennas is going to be amalgamation between DSP and RF side. So here everything, whatever the beam switching has to be done at the baseband direction. Baseband direction, we have to create these weighting functions. These weighting functions has to be fed to the antenna. So normally in phased array, we call it as multiple distributions, like Chebyshev distribution and normal distribution and all. That distribution has to be realized in the baseband side itself. That baseband side, that can be done with the help of signal processes, DSP processes. We can use that if that processes can do this weightage calculations and you can switch the beams, that will occur at a fast rate. Just imagine you have a processor which will generate weighting factors based on the feed adaptive beamforming can be only realized with the help of this active digital multiple beam, and that is going to be the future for the 5G communication. Whatever the things we have discussed today, but this is going to be the ultimatum. This design is going to be what when the millimeter wave base stations come. This is going to be it is going to be amalgamation of DSP process and RF system, but still it has bottlenecks, and this is the ultimate goal of beamforming. The objective of 5G is to create this kind of beamforming network that can be done with the help of this signal processing capacity, but it has a bottleneck also. Now we will summarize what we have discussed till now. Here in a nutshell, these antennas, these first antenna passive MBAs will have a fixed beam. It is not suitable for adaptive beam. We can see that these PMBAs will have only a fixed beam. It will not be able to. We cannot add adaptiveness there. So we will not be using PMBAs for 5G technology. And in MIMO, we are going to have hundreds of elements. As I said, a MIMO, massive MIMO array will have 100 elements, 100 cross 100 elements. If it has 100 cross 100 elements, then the length what we are going to use is going to be electrically very large. And the form factor of the entire antenna structure becomes very bulky. So the lens is also less preferred for this MIMO antenna. When you have beamforming circuits, the beamforming circuits, the problem with the beamforming circuits is when we need to have a large number of couplers and large number of transmission lines. For example, if I have to have an array of 100 elements, that means that let us say it is a 10 cross 10 antenna, MIMO antenna. If I have to create a 10 cross 10 MIMO antenna, then I have to have 10,000 tunable phase shifters. You think of that, I have to have 10,000. If I have an array of 100 elements, then I have to have 10,000 tunable elements, and similarly I need to have say hundreds of couplers. Then if I use that, then the becomes a large footprint. This size of the circuit becomes very large, and the these phased array antennas with multiple beamforming is one proper solution as of now, because it is the digital beamforming, we are not very close of connecting these DSP processes with the RF side. We still have a bottlenecks there. Until this solves, this MPPA is going to have the role. We can have improved flexibility, but the problem is we have to have a large number of phase shifters. Even if you have a local oscillator based MBPAS, if I have to have 100 elements, then 100 cross 100 elements, it says that it needs 20,000 mixes, and you will have 20,000 mixers and 20,000 local oscillators for creating a 100 cross 100 MIMO array. So the cost of the system increases, and here the digital beamforming is the promising solution for 5G massive MIMO. But the problem is we have to, it has a high power consumption, and it is not a very economic technology also. A DSP processor working at high frequency is not at the gigahertz range, is not yet in the market, but still the development goes on there. When we have a DSP processor that can directly work on RF signals, then with very cost effective, then we can have directive the digital MB, digital multi-beam antennas. So here the challenges is even if you have a digital beamforming, we have to find a beamforming algorithm. We have to find an efficient beamforming algorithm, because these beamforming networks are in future, it's going to be an adaptive. It has to study the channel, it has to find the location of the user, and it has to choose which direction the beam has to be directed, and it has to use the properties of the channel, and it has to use to find the direction. And if it has an interference signal blocking, then it is going to be a very complex algorithm, and algorithms are evolving. We need a high efficient baseband algorithms in order to calculate all this, and also we need a algorithm to control the amplifiers and attenuators that is going to be used in the digital beamformer, because we cannot when we put a high power in the device, then we need dynamically controlled attenuators in the circuit, as well as we have to control the gain of the amplifiers, and this gain of the amplifiers has to be dynamically controlled, and that algorithm also has to be, the efficient algorithm has to be developed. So if it is developed, this will have a high SINR, and also it will avoid the damage due to the strong and useful or interference signals. Sometimes even useful signals, if the user is very nearby, there is no point in pumping a large amount of power, right? So if and also if I have an interference from the adjacent user, he may be pumping with a large amount of power because his channel is very good. Then it may damage the amplifier, damage the entire beamforming circuit or the entire system. So in order to control that, we need to have a dynamic control algorithm for these amplifiers and attenuators. And similarly, the next challenge is digital processing hardware. So the digital processing hardware, because we need, in digital processing we have to convert the signal into digital. So when you convert digital into analog signal into digital converters, we need to have A to D and D to A converters. But A to D and D to A converters, which is converting at RF frequency, is also very less and very expensive. When you go towards millimeter wave, this problem gets multifold. And also we have to find DSP chips that operates at the RF frequency or millimeter wave frequency. So if it is possible, then it will give high throughput, and we can get a high throughput digital processing capacities. And also we have to efficiently calculate this efficient algorithms for determining these complex weight matrix. So we can see here, this weight matrix has to be calculated depending upon the external parameters. So we have to have a fast processor which will effectively calculate or efficiently calculate this complex weight matrix, so that we can efficiently form a digital beam. And as I said in the introduction, these millimeter wave components are very costly. Even RF components are very costlier, and testing equipments are very costlier. So these millimeter wave components, even testing facilities available in 1 or 2 places across India, and you will have to run door to door if you go for this millimeter wave experiments or projects. So, or otherwise you should have a high funding so that we can set up a lab on your premises itself. So you have a millimeter wave. Is a millimeter wave component is also a challenge. You can concentrate on your research by developing on millimeter wave components, but you have to find a good place to test it. So if these millimeter wave components should give good linearity, and it should be power efficient and thermal control. Especially for amplifiers, when you design an amplifier millimeter waves in high frequency, getting linearity is a big problem, and we should be power efficient also. And that is another bottleneck, getting these parameters with the millimeter wave components, especially in the active component. It is going to be a problem. And array challenge. In the array, we are going to place 100 cross 100 elements, means it's a minimum. If it is a massive MIMO, this 100 cross 100 is going to be a minimum. If it is 100 cross 100, then you will have a physical restriction. You cannot, you cannot design a 100 cross 100 antenna in the size of a flux or any other in the size of multiple meters of square meters of area. You have to have in the very limited area. You can see in the image, these antennas is going to have either 1 meter cross 1 meter or 2 meter cross 2 meter size. So size is a restriction. So if size is a restriction, that means that you are going to put these RF components very closer. If you put an RF components very closer, there is high possibility that the mutual coupling can occur. So this mutual coupling has to be controlled. Controlling a mutual coupling in MIMO antenna is another research problem. Plenty of papers are being reported. You can check, and it requires delicate consideration on system level and system implementation. When you talk it as a whole system, this entire DSP and RF and all these transceiver chips has to be placed in a single board or a single box. So the signal routing and board layout is going to be very complicated, and this is another area. So limited broad area. If you can control the signal routing and board layout designs, then it is another area of research also. And the system architecture. And yeah, when whatever system we talk on, it has to be less complex here, and it has to give high performance. Unless it is not there, if it is a complex system, we don't. It is very easy to. It is not very easy to manufacture. If it is a complex manufacturing process itself, is a very big problem. If you have very complex design, when you work in the industry, you can find. If you can design an antenna of any shape, can say that it is going to work perfectly. But if it is not manufacturable, these manufacturing guys will not accept, because if they have to spend lots of money in etching and manufacturing, then they will not accept. So you have to be a compromise between performance and complexity, and if it is uptime, then it will be cost effective also. So cost effectiveness of designing a 5G base station in millimeter wave is an open problem. And if you can, so if all these things can be met, we can find a cost effective 5G base station. So that's the end of my slide. And I always love these words. The best way to teach is best way to learn is to teach it. So I have learned by sharing things with you. And I like this word, the word of Professor Feynman. Teaching is a powerful tool to learning. So I have learned with you actually. I have been spending last 1 week with these concepts. So in future, I have an interest to work on these massive MIMO antenna also. So thanks for giving the opportunity, especially Professor Alan Joe and the another coordinator. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and to the IE chapter, Coimbatore chapter, and thank for them. So if you have any questions, we can discuss.
Now the floor is open for questions. You can ask to Mr. Venkatesh directly.
Yeah, Mr. Venkatesh, you are talking about millimeter wave components, coplanar wave guides, slot line, phase shifters, all these components. How to make all these things is very, very challenging. How to solve these challenges? If we are able to solve these challenges, then this 5G mobile communication or wireless communication will happen. Do you think that all these hardware challenges will be solved in in 1 or 2 years? This phase shifters you were talking, the phase array radars. So you are just moving the beam from 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 90 degrees. By that, you go on changing the beam by the help of phase shifters. What should be the accuracy of the phase shifters, and what are these directional couplers and all you are talking? And the amplifiers made using germanium silicon devices, gallium arsenide amplifiers. So a lot of challenges are there. Are there any commercial companies making all these components, or it is just research?
Sir, it is the few company. The one company that is working on, what I know is Qualcomm is very seriously working on this millimeter waves. As of my knowledge, and plenty of universities are working. One university in London, that is Loughborough University. There, Loughborough University is working on massive MIMO. They have created, if my memory is right, they have created a 100x100 massive MIMO with the help of those NI device, National Instrument devices. Transceiver 100 transceivers, 100x100 transceivers. They have realized a MIMO network. Even in market, we have a small 4x4, 2x2 MIMO devices are available. NI National Instruments is selling one kind of product with that. I'm not remembering the name of that product. I will, if I come to know, I will.
See, the slot lines and coplanar waveguides operate, say, at 20 gigahertz or 30 gigahertz or 40 gigahertz. I have not seen a slot line at all. I have not seen a coplanar waveguide. In my lab, there is only microstrip line kits available. So how to fabricate these things with
These microstrip fabrication and coplanar wave fabrication are very much similar. Only it's going to done with etching as well as slotted lines also. You have to create slots that acts as a transmission line. And these coplanar waveguides, you are going to have both the ground plane and the power line on the same plane itself. Coplanar. So in microstrip, you'll have a ground plane at the other side of the substrate. Here in coplanar waveguide, you're going to have the ground plane at the same plane. So
Yes.
transmission line and the ground plane will be on the same plane. So the manufacturing process is same. Only the but when you go towards the millimeter wave, the size of these structures will get very much reduced. Very.
Okay, you are talking about surface integrated waveguide also. Is that technology available?
Yes, sir, that technology is available. People in NIT Trichy are working on it. There are plenty of papers have been reported. SAW is a very old technology, sir. You can find plenty of literatures in the IEEE or any other research journals. And but the problem with the millimeter wave transmission line is it is very small. So now we have to make it large. So what people start doing is now they try to etch the ground plane, etch the substrate. So by etching the substrate, now we can increase the size of the device. So when it gets very small, so we have to make it slightly larger so that it can be manufactured. So we are etching the substrate. That is one way of realizing a feasible millimeter wave component. You can find. I have studied some 5-6 years before that one kind of manufacturing of millimeter wave transmission lines.
Do you think that millimeter wave components industry standard will occur in a near future and it will come to the commercial phase?
Sir, I think it is at minimum it will take another 10 years to this entire system is to evolve. If the entire system is to evolve, it will take another 5-6 years to design of these millimeter wave components commercially.
Okay, do you have simulators to design this millimeter wave components?
Whatever the simulator that is discussed in the second session will work for these frequencies also.
Is it expensive or whatever simulators you can
you can use the ADS or CST or HFSS. These will work in millimeter wave also. You can, or if you want to go much better, you can go for COMSOL physics. That is also one good solver for you can any commercial solver will help you to solve all these frequencies. It is not free.
All these things are available in military equipment, and it should be transported from military equipment to the handphones or smartphones in the near future, so that all the people throughout the world can use it.
Yes, yeah. Actually, every invention comes from the defense. Even internet comes from defense. Mobile communication has come from defense. Once they have a better technology, then they will give this to the marketing.
Yeah, I like your presentation. You have explained about beamforming and phased array antennas, massive MIMO, and the that is mutual coupling between two antennas when they are placed nearby, and all those stuff you have given. It is very nice that you have given a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words. Any other doubts?
Hello. So, Professor Venkatesh, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
So, as I am also as a alumni of TC for some time.
Oh, yes, sir.
So, it is very much affinity to you for giving some suggestions.
Yes, sir.
I think you gave so much of stuff in this 1.5 hour of duration of your presentation.
Yes, I know that, sir. But
yeah, instead you would have taken that beamforming techniques and challenges. That itself enough, I hope so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you for the sir.
Yeah, please, because you are in the closing stage, you have a lot of potential and you are showing much interest. But the presentation also to be, it to be right, to be calculated, based on the duration and participants and the viability. Okay, yeah. Fine, Venkat. See, in your starting of presentation, you
Yes.
mentioned three legendary scientists in this field of communication. Is
Yes,
it?
sir. Yes, sir.
And I think at this juncture, I would like to name one of the another legend. He is also from our own country, right? His name is Swami Palraj. He is the father of MIMO.
Yes, yes, sir. I know him.
So I think you can keep it his picture also when you are presenting the next presentation 5G MIMO technologies. Okay.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. Then the question side, I think now in multiplexing, especially on the spatial multiplexing side, normally people are now talking about on non-orthogonal YFTM. That is what
Yes,
called
sir.
NAMO something. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Could you throw some light on that concept?
Sir, actually, I'm not. I don't know what is a non-orthogonal OFDM. I haven't read that. Sorry for that. I will not answer your question.
Okay, okay, no problem. Then the next question is that during of your presentation, you discussed something on memotocell, is it?
Femto, sir.
Femtocell, and the problem is that in use of higher frequency of millimeter wave, like 6 gigahertz beyond of that, right?
Yes, sir.
You told it must be obstacle, and also it will be it will be one of the problem you told, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in future, when you go like 5G communication, that is what I think some countries are still, they are hesitating to implement, right? So when
Yes.
I want to talk between of two cells, no, even a small object like a cat or something, a small object will go nearer to me, right?
Yes, sir.
So that time I may not able to communicate to my, receiver properly, is it? That is one of the small problem.
Yes.
And another thing is that when you keep this much of pile of, a huge cells, right?
Yes,
and
sir.
how we are going to control the radiation, because EM radiation is one of the tough task in the communication, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, that is my question for you.
Sir, actually, again, whatever you're saying is an open problem. When people start manufacturing these femtocells or picocells, they will have these radiation hazards in their mind, and they will evolve a standard to control this radiation, or they can control this amount of power can be fed because even when you have macro stations, we have a limitation. Only 100 watts of power has to be pumped in these kind of cells. Or when we have femtocells, the standard will evolve such that it controls the radiation hazards also.
Okay, fine. And the next question is that I have only a couple of questions. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
See, as you know, in normal communication, you want to improve SNR, right? We want to improve bit error rate, is it?
Yes, sir.
As on 5G communication, what kind of modulation is preferred for getting a better SNR and better bit error rate?
So, I have put it on a slide that it is going to have some modified OFDM, and I also studied in some literature what you said non-orthogonal OFDM is also preferred. It is going to be modified.
Techniques. They are not modulation techniques. I'm asking on modulation techniques with some like polar codes and Turby code like that people are talking. So I'm asking that modulation techniques, not multiplexing techniques, to get a better SNR and better rate.
I'm not aware of that, sir. I'm not aware of that.
Fine. Okay. Then the next question is that what will be the role of artificial intelligence in the 5G communication? You may have some ideas on that, because nowadays people are talking about an artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, machine learning, like that. Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What will be the impact of this AI? Because the 5G is on future communication.
Yes, sir.
Right? Can you give some ideas on that?
So actually, artificial intelligence will not have impact on 5G. It's based on my knowledge I'm speaking.
Okay.
5G will have an impact on artificial intelligence. Why? Because the artificial intelligence is going to be a decision making. For decision making, we have to get some input from many of the devices or many of the, you can call it may be a human body also. You can take a decision. So this data has to be picked from these objects, and these objects is going to be fed to the artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence will make a decision, and this decision will be fed to the object or any other body. So 5G will provide the needed data to these artificial intelligence. That is what I understand, or that is what my understanding about artificial intelligence and 5G.
Okay. See, the last question is, when you're talking about massive MIMO,
Yes, sir.
we have a lot of, a pile of antennas. You have huge array of antennas, is it?
Yes, yes, sir.
When you go for when you want to integrate this massive MIO in a VLSI related configurations,
Yes, sir.
is it that it will give some kind of drawback to the designers, like of in power issue or in size issue like that?
Sir, can you repeat, sir? I'm not able to understand your question.
See, the thing is that when you want to keep off massive MIO, you are having a more number of antennas.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Suppose I want to incorporate this massive MIO in my communication device.
Yes.
Definitely, the requirement of antenna, we need of some space and some power requirement.
Yes, sir.
And what we are going to, what I call trade-off between of your VLSI requirement and your power requirement and size requirement. I mean, in terms of VLSI, I'm asking.
Sir, actually, VLSI is going to be the backbone for these. If antenna is anyhow, it is going to be a normal PCB planar structure, to my knowledge.
Okay.
And these whatever these decision making device like DSP processors or these phase shifters can adopt the VLSI technology. And interfacing between these two is going to be another bottleneck, and people will find something to connect these planar device and VLSI device. We have done before. Now all the device except these antenna and some electronic components, everything is a VLSI design. Even you take your mobile phone, the entire processing happens in a single chip, and all other devices are Excel device which connects the power and other to the radiating system. So similar kind of methodology can be followed to connect this massive MIMO devices and the beamforming devices.
Okay, this is my last question. I'm not going to ask more than that. Okay, thank you for your nice answers. See, you told that it will take another decade of, 2030 to
Yes,
implement of full 5G applications.
yes, sir.
Okay, but I hear that there are quite some developed countries, right? They fully implemented 5G to some apart. Then later they had some hesitation. Now they are not willing to go on 5G. So my question is that what is the real practical difficulties in implementing the 5G scenario, especially on like quantum-based communication? Please, can you throw some light on that?
Sir, actually, what I heard is South Korea has implemented this 5G communication. I don't know whether they have rolled back yet, but still full 5G you have to operate in millimeter wave. Maybe some developed countries which have high technological advancements like South Korea or China they will be working on in Indian scenario it will take another decade. In the scenario like South Korea or China, they will make another 5 years to develop all these things. And I'm hearing first time for a rollback of 5G networks. Anyhow, I will check it.
What is the difficulties? Why they are going on rollback? That's what I'm asking.
I haven't read about that. So if I have read about that, I could be able to answer you.
Okay. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your questions.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh,
Thank you, Alan.
for throwing out the basics of 5G and the challenges that are involved in designing an 5G antenna. Thank you, sir.
Alan. Thank you, Alan.
An information to all the participants, the feedback link will be mailed to a registered mail ID, and when you fill that feedback form, you will receive a certificate, but the link will be mailed within 7 days. Thank you. We thank the Coimbatore IEI Local Center and Department of ECE, Kumaraguru College of Technology for giving us opportunity to conduct this IEA online seminar on recent trends in antenna design using CAD tools. Thank you all. Thanks for your participation.